and welcome back to another show. I've got the wrong camera on, so we'll go with it now. But how's everybody out there? I hope you're all doing well. Jeremy, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Busy.
Yeah.
Busy's good.
It's weird because I just set this up on the fly and I forgot to adjust cameras. So I'm talking to over there, but you're over here.
I'm like, hang on a second, it's different.
Yeah.
Hey, look, the switch up's good. Switch up is very good.
No, I'm going to switch it back in a sec, but I just thought use two cameras, and I actually like the way this one looks. It makes the studio look a little sexy.
It does, and at least with this camera, you can actually see little objects on your desk that look really nice.
My wife is back from Queensland, and my wife and my stepdaughter were out, and they saw this, and they said, we have to get that for Gary. And I'm not going to lift it up because the legs fall off it, but I have a disco ball flying saucer. How cool is that?
Nice.
It is. It's absolutely sensational. So before I jump any further, I'm going to switch back to a camera view that everybody is much more familiar with, and that's this one here. So, yeah, tonight we thought we'd talk about triangles. And not the one everybody thinks about as a usual sort of thing, you know. Although I'll be surprised if there aren't any kind of connections there somewhere. So
I think in some senses there's already been a lot of comparisons and connections to the same place.
So when I refer to triangles, if I talk about planes disappearing, people disappearing, all kinds of weird phenomena happening, what's the one place everybody thinks about?
Well, the first one is the Bermuda Triangle is the first off the top of your head you'd think for.
Exactly, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're actually talking about a place that's a little bit colder. And if you haven't heard about it, it's actually the Alaska Triangle.
Yes.
Whoopee, 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 whoopee. I'm just so excited to talk about something like that. And also, have you noticed the microphone's there?
And it hasn't fallen yet.
And it hasn't, well, no, not that, but it hasn't hogged the focus because I've worked out the peaking and manual settings on my camera, so I've set
if you keep moving slightly, it'll stay on you.
It better stay on me. If there's some sort of conspiracy to talk about, if that's the case. So I've got these little peaking lines on the camera view screen which show the points that are in focus, which should be around my beard, nose and eyes. And I've currently got a blue beard, so it should be pretty close to focus. But yeah, anyway, getting back onto what we're talking about the Alaska Triangle. Now, it's something that not a lot of people think about and or have heard about in many respects. And it's a very large area, and it's right through that sort of mountainous region. It actually goes from Anchorage up to, I think, is it Juneau or something like that, and then out to a third point. I'd had all this information down, but because we're sort of jumping off on the fly, I haven't actually got it in front of me. And
it crosses over like half of the Gulf of Alaska.
Yeah.
But it's weird though. Whereas your Bermuda Triangle is over water, whereas the Alaskan Triangle, you got one edge and 2 points over water.
But the majority is over land. And that's why I didn't include ships in that little intro I said about the missing planes and things like that, which do happen. And apparently the majority of missing persons throughout the Alaska region happen within this triangle area. And if you actually look at it on a map and you map any kind of towns and stuff like that, there's actually not a lot in there.
No, it's just terrain, harsh terrain.
Yeah, mountainous, very icy, and in fact a lot of it you can't even access by ground. You can only access it through air. And it makes you wonder what kind of things are happening out there, and I say this it's be a good spot for a secret base.
Carl's gonna love that bit.
Well, this goes back to a lot of shows that we've talked about in the past, and we've got one coming up on remote viewing, and one of the famous remote viewers actually, he thought he channeled aliens, and which sounds weird in of itself, but it actually led him to this point in Alaska. And of course, he was just looking at a map. You know, it was taking him to a point on a map, and it was just a mountain, middle of nowhere. Now, that mountain is Mount Hayes, and what he said is that not only are there aliens there? But there are actual military people there as well. It's a joint interspecies base. So they're talking aliens and soldiers from Earth working in the same base, in the same space. And it is referred to very similar to when you hear stories of Area 51 and S4 with, especially S4, and you talk about Bob Lazar, he talks about the side of the mountain opening up and it's a hangar bay door, and that's where all the UFOs can come out and do their test flying and stuff like that. But when they go back in, the hangar doors close, which are camouflaged like part of the mountain. It becomes invisible. Now, you think about that out at Mount Hayes and in Alaska, same sort of thing there, but then with the amount of snow that happens and the snow falls down, it is literally 100% invisible to the public.
You'll never see it.
No. And it makes you wonder what happens there.
Look, it got me in the sense of I haven't heard a lot about this place myself. And this place has been around since, 72, I think it is?
Well, it's probably been around a lot longer than that, but that's where that's when it was first brought to the attention of the remote viewers.
Yes. And you were saying that it was the triangle's bounded between Anchorage, Juneau, and I'll tell you what, I can't say that third one because it's half the alphabet.
Maybe that's why my brain just zoned out.
But it was known as Barrow until 2016.
Yes,
before
that's
it
the
got
one.
Changed to, look, I would give it a crack, but I'd probably offend someone and swear in a different language.
It's probably not worth it. I mean, after last week's show with the last live stream we had, and we talked about Scientology, and I've said that word again, and we had all kinds of rubbish happen after that and trying to get everything going, so we're not going to mention that tonight. We don't want to offend many people tonight, so we're going to try and keep it as... Well, we might offend some aliens, and that could be even worse.
Have you seen about numbers that have gone missing there by any chance?
No, all I know is the number of missing persons reported in the triangle area are many, many, many times greater than that outside of the area. So it makes you wonder what they're actually coming across in there. I mean, obviously, just the location itself, all the ice and the mountainous and the ruggedness of it all, and you've obviously got wildlife there as well. I would say the vast majority of people they've slipped and died of exposure to the elements, or they've been attacked by animals and things like that. But there have been lots of sightings of UFOs and various other cryptid type sightings as well.
So, man, could this go hand in hand with Bigfoot or the Abominable Snowman?
Well, the Abominable Snowman, that's the Yeti, and that's the Himalayas. So that it's not. It would be more the Sasquatch, which is more the North American and Canadian version. I don't know if version's the right word, but that's what they call it out there. You know, you go through the Himalayas, and it's called the Yeti. You work your way through China, they call it the Yeren, and then obviously by the time you get down to us in Australia, it's called the Yowie. So, whatever you name it, they're all talking about the same animal, sort of. And I wouldn't at all doubt that they are there, because know.
Since 1988, more than 16,000 people have been missing in this range.
That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That's just ridiculous.
There's apparently several instances where nothing can be explained and they've got names.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some that have caught flights and not been seen from afterwards when they're supposed to be back at work. No one rocks up.
Mm.
There's Frank Minano. He was 69. He was reported missing in August 17, 2020. He was located about 60 miles west of Fairbank, in the heart of Alaska Triangle. His family and authorities told they believed it became lost in the woods. But NBC 11 in Fairbanks described Morano as a traditional educator, mentor, and culture, hunting, subsistence, living, and respecting the land. So, by the looks of it, the guy knew a lot about that area and how to survive off that area.
And that's what happens in a lot of these cases.
Absolutely no sign of him whatsoever.
Yeah. Which I can understand with snowfall and things like that, but when you're talking about somebody who knows the area, knows how to survive it, probably very well prepared for it. There should be no reason, barring an absolute accident or some very unforeseen circumstance, why he wouldn't have survived it and got home all right.
Yeah, well, you've even got the case of this. This sounds really silly. There's a 73-year-old war veteran, World War II veteran. After the 4th of July parades, he went missing in 1995. He still has not been declared. He has been declared legally dead, but the case has still remained unsolved.
Mm.
How do you lose a 73-year-old war veteran with a limp?
Well, what's he doing out there? Yeah, I know it's yeah. Now I watched a documentary. It wasn't actually about this; it was about something else. But it was one of these investigative journalists, and he came across some of this information, and he actually went to the point of. He said it is so remote. The only way you can get to Mount Hayes, which, funnily enough, is pretty much dead center of this triangle. Now, when you talk about the Bermuda Triangle, they do say that there is a pyramid at the bottom of the ocean, on the ocean floor, or below the ocean floor, right in the center of that triangle as well. So, I don't know. I don't know if this bears any sort of similarities, but it does sound suspiciously similar, you know. And, yeah.
You're not wrong. Yeah, Fairbanks is like bang smack. I've got a map just up next to me here.
Mm-hmm.
Fairbanks is bang smack in that middle.
Yeah. Well, this investigative journalist actually hired one of those bush planes. You know, those little, not a Cessna, it's one of those other things that can short takeoff, short landing type planes. And they flew out around Mount Hayes.
Yep.
And he said the actual descriptions and the drawings from this remote viewer, it is an almost perfect match. He goes, and you would never find your way to this place any other way than by plane. So there's no way he could have known about it. And there was a big clearing where they were able to land. So they were able to get this plane down. And he couldn't get up right super close to the mountain, but he got close enough to have a look around to see if he could find any signs of a base. Obviously, he couldn't see anything there. But it's very strange that they only had a certain amount of time on location before they had to get back, obviously, because of the plane and everything like that. So he got as close as he could. He couldn't find any sign of it, but he said there was a few things that were strange. Now, I can't remember what it was he went into, but when you watch the video, it's on YouTube somewhere, you do go, yeah, that shouldn't be happening like that. And what happened was, when he tried to get closer, a storm started to brew out of nowhere, almost out of thin air, pretty much right above the mountain. And the pilot says, we have to get out before this gets any worse, otherwise we ain't getting out. So they had to abandon, get back in the plane and take off. And they reckon no sooner were they out and away than the storm dissipated behind them.
So that comes like, I'm going to sound like a real conspiracy nut here.
This whole thing says conspiracy theory.
It is. I understand that, but they've been talking about having machines that control the weather for years, decades, really, if not longer. Who's to say that these things aren't popped over these spots where people go missing and vanish?
Exactly. And you think about it, if you're a military organisation with a secret that intense that you're talking alien collaborators and things like that, the only way to access this site is by air. Then your best defense is to create a storm over the area so the planes have to leave. That is so suspicious.
Going back to when I was saying how they started knowing it as the Triangle in 1972, that was when a US House Majority Leader, Hale Boggs, vanished between Juneau and Anchorage, which followed the nation's largest search and rescue mission for more than a month. I think they had 50 civilian planes, 40 military craft, and they searched 32,000 square miles. So that's larger than the state of Maine in the US.
Yeah.
They've never found a trace of Boggs, his crew, or his aircraft.
Now, what does that sound like to you?
Someone wasn't supposed to be there.
No, well, there's that, but the Bermuda Triangle as well. It makes you wonder what's... Everybody says, oh, there's 1,000 different stories and a 1,000 different tales about what's going on in the Bermuda Triangle and things like that, to the point of, they say, alien base in this pyramid and stuff like that. Now, one of the other big things that they do say about... Now, this is where it gets really, really, really interesting, and I'm going to talk about this some more off air. But there was this counter-espionage agent in America, and what happened was he ended up getting stationed in Alaska. Now, he said, the first thing you do as a counter-espionage personnel is, when you're stationed somewhere, is you familiarise yourself with your area of operation. So he started getting all these maps, and obviously military maps. And he said every single point in Alaska was surveyed. He said, except there's one big area, a very weird and very specific shape, and it said area not surveyed to date. And he said, he said no. He goes, they're covering something up there. They have to be, because everything around it has been surveyed, so why wouldn't they have surveyed that area as well? Now, he didn't think anything more of it. He went about doing his thing, but it wasn't until the year late. It was actually 1992 when things started to get interesting. Now, I don't know if you remember, Russia and America signed this big thing about nuclear tests and stuff like that.
I wasn't alive, or...
No,
I was very young.
Anyway... Yeah, there was this thing signed saying that they wouldn't do nuclear tests over a certain kilotonnage. I'm not sure what the correct term for that is. Yep. But China didn't sign that agreement. And in 1992, and you can find this in record, they did a bomb test. It's the biggest nuclear underground bomb test, I think, to date. Approximately 70 times greater yield than the one that took out Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Oh, jeez.
So it's massive. Now, what happened was, this thing, because it was in the ground, it sent vibrations out over 4,000 miles in every direction, which covers Alaska. Yep. And local geologists, what they did was, they used the resonance and these waves to get an idea of what the ground, the mantle and all of that sort of stuff was made up of, what sort of rocks, and things like that, because you can tell by the what you get back, whether you got something dense or whether you got normal, and you can work out whether there's any weird sort of stuff. Now, it got reported that, funny enough, they picked up something in Alaska, right, which is absolute solid stone, and the readings that came back put it as a pyramid shape, and this is underground, right? Now, it was actually reported on TV, an underground pyramid has been found in Alaska, and this counterintelligence guy actually saw this, and he was absolutely blown away by it, and he wanted to get more information on it. So he went down to the TV station the next morning, and the guy there turned around and goes, I don't know what you're talking about. We know nothing about this. And he's like, but it was on TV last night. No, you must have been mistaken. Anyway, he started to leave, and as he was walking out, a junior at the the TV station sort of flagged him to one side and turned around and said, he goes, about an hour ago, 2 men in black suits came in and took everything, and we were told you're not allowed to talk about this ever again. So that's, what's that classic stuff, you're talking about there. Anyway, so that intrigued him even more. Now, eventually he ended up getting stationed back in mainland, down in America. I can't remember where it was, down by the coast somewhere. And it played on his mind. This was about a year or two later on. And he went in, because this is where a lot of the military archives and things are. And he goes, do you have anything on Alaska? Because he said he made friends with the person in the archives department. And they turned around and said, Yeah. If you go down there on the second row, there'll be a couple of shelves on it. Just have a look through there and get what you need to get. So he went down, had a look, and he opened up this file on Alaska, which you wouldn't think there'd be much there, would you?
No,
and
it
was one of the most heavily redacted files you had ever seen. But he was able to see a map, right? And it had this pyramid on it, the location of this pyramid, and he was able to then. He had the map of the map that he when he first went up to Alaska, which had the area not surveyed.
Yes,
he had that as well, and he took the coordinates, and where this pyramid is bang in the middle of that unsurveyed area. He goes, that's what they're keeping secret. No more than 2 minutes after that, 2 men in black suits rolled up, and they flashed something which to him said, I can't ask questions. They said, you are not cleared to know about this. Forget about it. They grabbed all the files, all the notes that he was taking, including the map that he had from Alaska. They took the whole lot and said, you're not allowed to talk about this ever again.
Huh. How would you be? You find out all this information, like, oh, no, sorry, mate.
Well, the reason he's talking about it now is obviously he's out of the military now, or the counter-espionage thing. And you got to wonder, who are these people where they outrank somebody in counterintelligence? I mean, I know there's always somebody above you.
Well, there was there's one I think I was meaning to send to you. It was actually a video of a guy, a whistleblower, talking about there are people above the CIA.
Yeah.
And there's organisations, not the Illuminati, but there's a small group, and he pretty much goes, these guys tell the FBI and the CIA what's going on, and half the time they don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's your typical Men in Black thing as well.
Yeah. It goes hand in hand with a few different sort of things like that. Your encounters at UFOs and whatnot, and they like to put their feet in and go, nope, nobody needs to know about this.
But this is the thing, right? This is the absolute thing about this. He was on a military base, and these guys were there within minutes, and they were in black suits. They weren't in military fatigues. They didn't have any rank showing anywhere because they were wearing suits. But they pointed something up which he knew automatically you don't question, and he wouldn't tell you what it was.
No.
So who are these people?
For them to know and for us to find out eventually.
Oh, I don't think
I never think eventually.
Maybe that film Men in Black is pretty close to the point. Just look at the light.
Oh. Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, you're a bit of a plane nut. You like your aircrafts.
Hmm.
Have you heard of a C-54 Skymaster? Yep. So
I can't remember which one it is, but yeah.
Well, they're about, what was it converted to? 117 feet. They're about 35 metres in wingspan and about 28 metres long.
Yep.
So one of those went missing just out of Anchorage towards the Triangle, and it disappeared in the 1950s. There was an 8-man crew, 36 passengers. It was a military plane. They had no trace of it 2 hours after it had said, yes, we're just passing Anchorage.
See, they have transponders and all sorts going.
Sorry. They had the last radio transmission was just out of Yukon.
Hmm.
And then that was it. There was a mounted search incorporating the US and Canadian planes, aside from thousands of volunteers on foot, but nothing was ever found of the C-54.
See, I always have these flashbacks back to that film, that really dodgy 80s film, They Are Here, or that They're Alive. I can't remember what they call it now. It's brilliant in a really demented, horrible way. But at the end of that, obviously, alien species have infiltrated mankind, and with some sort of a signal, they were able to mask what they look like. And they go down at the bottom of one of these buildings, and they actually have an underground base, which I know we're talking, you've seen Stargate and things like that. It's a very similar sort of thing. You walked in, and the hangar decks in Star Wars? Yes. How it's got the giant force field, and then you can see space?
Yes.
Well, that's what you could see, but this was underneath a building in the middle of a city. And what happens is you step through and you will zap off to wherever you go. So it's like a interdimensional gateway almost, like an airport. In you go, you pop up somewhere else. Makes you wonder if they haven't got something like that at this base. Or indeed a Stargate.
Or they're not of this world.
Well, this is what the remote viewer said. He said some of them, there are aliens there, but there are humans as well. So, what do you make of that?
As much as my brain tells me, I can't really say out loud because I could get myself in trouble.
Yeah, well, on that, we're going to have to go now anyway, but...
Just quickly with that. The native Alaskans have gone and said that there is another cryptid that lives around that way, which is similar to what they have, which they call the Kushtaka.
Yes, I've heard that.
Which are shape-shifting otters. They shapeshift into terrifying creatures that prey on explorers lost in the wilderness.
So we could do a whole show on those kind of things as well. The Tokolosh and things like that.
But that's what I mean. Like that triangle. There's been thoughts of there's big massive energy vortexes there.
Yeah.
You know, you could go on for hours on this stuff here.
Oh, I know. And like I said, we only skim over the highlights just to give you guys give you guys a point of interest, and then you can start Googling and doing your own thing. And I don't know, let us know in the comments below what you think of the Alaska Triangle and stuff.
It'd be interesting to see.
And obviously we do live shows every Friday night as well, so if you want to pop on Friday night, that's 9 o'clock Perth time, which is +8 GMT for anybody who's international. If you want to jump on, it's usually, if you're in New York, I think it's about 9 o'clock in the morning on a
Let's make it hard now with our Eastern
morning.
States viewers, because 9 o'clock's now 12 o'clock.
Oh, don't get me started. See, even England, GMT, they have daylight savings as well, so I don't know if we're actually 7 hours or 8 hours at the moment, but
all I know is the time here. That's it.
That's why I said 9 o'clock Perth time. So look up West Australian Standard Time and you'll find out and be able to work out when we are live. So on that, I think it's time to go, mate.
No worries. Well, we'll speak to you guys soon.
Yeah, we'll see you all next week. Catch ya.
See ya.